Well, this
And
is
go ahead.
This is one of my favorite, not my favorite cases, because this is a horrible thing happened, but where I really got to make a difference and make a change in this client's life, because she does not speak English and she was with her friends, so she had 4 people around her, and they lived in this neighborhood, and they were
the only one that got hit.
She got hit, but they were all there, so they all saw it happen. And the police officer comes up and he doesn't speak Spanish. The ambulance takes her off. He doesn't even ask any of them what happened. And he just takes the word of the white English speaking man who hit her, and is like, oh, she must have just been in the roadway and you didn't see her. Not at a crosswalk. She's at fault. And so then time goes on. She's in the hospital. She doesn't speak English. She's away from her family.
And this woman is paralyzed, you guys.
Mm-hmm. And so her family doesn't reach out to us. And then we've got Spanish-speaking paralegals in our office who are able to call up her friends, her witnesses, and ask them what happened so that I could put that in the report. And then we've also got police officers who, and I think that's what we kind of talked about with bicyclists, because I've been treating bicyclists and people on mopeds just like pedestrians, because they're not really in a vehicle or a motorcycle or anything like that. But I guess the traffic laws, if you're not in a crosswalk, you're going to get a ticket and you're at fault because you're not in the crosswalk. And I guess in criminal court, that's how it holds up, and they find people guilty all the time. But in civil court, when you're trying to prove who's at fault for causing these injuries, it's a different standard. And the civil law says the drivers have a duty to see whether you're in the crosswalk or not. So if someone's in the middle of the roadway and they're not in the crosswalk, that doesn't mean you just get to plow through them.
Yeah.
And you're not at fault. You have to stop because there's something in the roadway. I mean, you have to stop when a deer's in the road. Otherwise, it's your fault if you hit a deer, but it's not your fault if you hit a person. And that just blows my mind. But so in this case, she called us a lot later because she didn't think she had a claim. But we were able to get on the phone with the witnesses. Thankfully, they were there, and translate their statements, and also just do some investigation into this driver who I found out had a ton of speeding tickets, even on the same road as early as like 10 days before this.
Wow.
And so he just constantly speeding through a neighborhood. And so the insurance
commercial
company,
truck.
Yeah.
It's a commercial vehicle.
Yeah.
So you're held to a higher duty. It's not just you're driving a car.
And
Yeah.
Thank God he was in a commercial truck, because then we would have been looking at a much lower policy, and
Right.
with such horrific injuries, then she would have. I mean, there's no amount of money that will ever make this sweet little woman whole, but there's a lot more to get when we've got a commercial truck.
Yeah. So we were able to get that without even filing a lawsuit. And that was just basically because we did the investigation that the police department didn't. And it was like open and shut, case closed. I asked this guy what happened, and I can't understand anybody else. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how he wraps it up. But there was a lot more to that story.
Well, I'm so grateful for you guys, but it also makes me really sad of like how many times does this happen and there's nobody there to like fight for these people, you know?
Well, it's happening every day, man.
Yeah.
And so what everybody should get out of this episode is, even though your case is denied, don't give up. I mean,
Yeah.
Right. I was telling Justin earlier that all of my pedestrian cases, every single pedestrian case I've had, the pedestrian's been marked at fault. Mm-hmm. And we've been able to get them compensated for their injuries just by showing, the civil case law that says you're not at fault versus the traffic stuff. So the police are going to always mock. In my opinion, I try to talk to the officers, and make them understand.
I'm slowly educating all of them.
Don't get
I
discouraged.
that.
Yeah, don't get discouraged if you're marked at fault and something, give us a call anyway, because it's worth it.
Absolutely.
Well, is that something that should be changed with the traffic laws? I mean, that doesn't make sense, because
It's
if they're
stupid.
following those laws.
It's stupid, and we hate it. But it's a lot harder to change laws than it is to change the amount of the insurance who the insurance and defense attorney and insurance companies.
But also
we can show them the civil law.
Yeah, thinking of the purpose of the law, right? The traffic law is because you want to encourage people to walk in the crosswalk, because there's less likely that they're going to get hit. Mm-hmm. And so you want to give people tickets to make them remember to walk in the crosswalk. The civil side is totally different.
Is there ever an instance where the pedestrian would be at fault?
If they threw themselves in front of the car.
on
Like
purpose?
if they,
purpose.
if they like ran out.
Which, I mean, we've seen a case like that. It happened to be a police officer's car here in our county. God bless, there was a dash cam that we could see, and it was like suicide by jumping yourself in front of a car, but that's the exception to the rule. I mean, I've heard of one of those in my 16 years of practicing law. Yeah.
And it's not like, remember, we're not trying to, if you hit a pedestrian in the roadway or something and you're at fault, your insurance company's at fault, civilly liable. You're not going
Right.
to go to prison for hitting a pedestrian. It's still an accident.
Right.
And I don't think anybody's out there
accidents happen.
purposefully trying to hit people. But it's important for pedestrians to know that even if you're not in the crosswalk, because we had a lot of people drinking and walking, which I will also
Trying to do the right thing, right?
Yeah.
right, trying to do the right thing by not driving. You know, and we live on Ocean Boulevard down there. You're supposed to walk. That's what it's for.
Just keep a proper lookout.
Keep a lookout. Drivers have to keep a lookout. That's our duty. We're driving a 2,000-pound car, so it's more responsibility.
Yeah. So with all of these cases, really one of the main hurdles was that they were all kind of cited at fault, right?
Yeah.
All of the clients were cited at fault.
Overcame the odds of an at-fault driver who was not really at fault. Turning the tides.
Yeah. Were there any other factors in this case, this last one with the pedestrian, that made it a difficult case, or was it really just proving that they were not at fault?
Well, the language barrier.
The language barrier.
The language barrier,
Yeah.
which we're lucky to have
Paralegals.
paralegals who speak
and input,
Spanish,
yeah.
and also are trustworthy. I think because they could speak to her so freely and really tell her. And really, I think that's the first time anybody ever asked her. She's paralyzed in the hospital. That's the first time anybody ever asked her what happened was when we asked her. Months later.
Wow.
And so the language barrier, I think, was a big deal.
Wow. Well, obviously, I'm really glad that we brought light to some of these things, not just to show what great work you guys do, but also these are things that I think are commonly misunderstood by people. So I think it's good to kind of show how these cases are worked up and that pedestrians aren't at fault and, the bicyclist isn't at fault. And even I always find the dog bite scenario is very interesting about, whose dog is it and who, who's liable for this. So, terrible stories, but I'm glad that we've been able to fight for them.
Yeah, and if you've been marked at fault in an accident, you really feel like it wasn't your fault, whether you're a pedestrian or whatever that is, call us. We'll talk about it. We'll run through the scenario. And if you are at fault and we think that you're at fault, we'll tell you why we think you're at fault and the law that supports it and why. And that way, at least you'll sleep better at night knowing that you have an educated answer,
Yeah.
Or if you've called another law firm and you've been turned down by their intake department, let us look at it. Get a second opinion. As long as we can look at it, within the statute of limitations, we'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
Earlier is better, obviously, because witnesses, their memories fade, and investigation sites are hard to get down and view and do our investigation. But the quicker the better.
Yeah.
We'll take a look at it.
But we're not afraid to dig in there and
No, we love it.
take time to research.
We love
the
digging.
sleeves. Yeah.
It's my favorite thing.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for chatting about these today and also for what you guys are doing to help people. Thank you guys for watching today. Of course, if you have questions, just like they said, call us, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. You can find us everywhere on social media and online. We're on Twitter, social media, like I already said, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You can find us online at justiceslovely.com. Thanks so much for watching today. Carolina Justice Reports drop every Tuesday at 2 p.m. See you next time.
When life gets ugly, justice is lovely.